Okay, guys. We just went ahead and we went through this whole like evolved design kind of concept where we played around with text so we could get a little, different version of text down here. And if you recall, at one point, I went ahead and I veered one way and I went in a different direction too. So I wanted to come back to this so we can get a sense of where we're at. Um, I wanted to go through just a couple simple things that you could work with utilizing what we call our appearance panel. Again, if you've taken Graphics 1, you should be somewhat familiar with the appearance panel, but just in case, we go to Window and we go to Appearance. And the appearance panel is a really great thing to use with type for a handful of reasons. It really is the appropriate way to do strokes. You can do warps on here and a handful of other things, but really the best reason to use the appearance panel for type in general is simply because it will essentially allow you to how do I put this? Keep your type editable, but at the same time be able to put some effects on it. So when we're working with type, what we need to do is even though it's black type like we see here, we always have to add a fill on it. And by default, it's just going to color whatever the default fill was here, which was black, right? So let's go ahead and let's put a stroke on this. I don't know, red. Okay. Now when we do that, when we go ahead and we put that stroke on it, it totally gives us somewhat of a problem. All right, because it kind of like eats into the inside of the actual letter forms. And as I increase that stroke size, I lose all the information there that made up, like that B there. So that's kind of problematic. And so one of the beauties of working with the appearance panel, it gives us the ability to take this stroke and grab it and pull it below the fill. So now check this out. We can increase that stroke size, but it falls behind our fill. That's pretty cool. So we've got that. So we can also go ahead and go as far as changing some other things up. Like I'll change the color here, right? I'm gonna make it blue instead of black. And let's kind of go for the whole red, white, and blue American theme, right? So I'm gonna add another stroke by clicking on this little stroke piece right here. And okay, so it just duplicates the stroke that's in place. So another red stroke that's 3 points. Let's make it a white stroke, and let's make it a little smaller. And now it's above that fill. Let's pull it behind that fill. And now check that out. You have what we call an inline stroke. And I think I'm going to try 1.5. And that's pretty good. You actually, now that I think about it, this font is really similar to the font that they used for Annie. Okay, if you saw that movie. But so we're gonna go ahead and use Arby's anyway. But yeah, this font is very similar to that font, and they kind of had an effect where they had like a double stroked font, if I recall correctly from looking at the movie cover. So that's one thing that we can do here with the appearance panel. So let's go ahead and let's copy our arrow here, and let's go up with this. Okay, and let's copy our Arby's. And let's check out a little something else we can do with the appearance panel. We have these FX down here, okay? These are appearance effects. And some of my favorite ones are down here called warp, all right? There's a bunch of different things that we can do, like arcs, arches, flags, rises, all that sort of stuff. So let's just take a look and see what it is. So let's go to arc. And it gives us these warp options, and we have a bunch of sliders. There's a preview, and the preview is really important. It's going to tell us what we need. And this is the thing, like, as well as I do, that you've seen something like this before on a sign or a logo or something along those lines. And again, this is very, very helpful because to create this kind of how do I put this? I don't want to call it um, custom text, but it kind of is like custom text, and it's illustrated almost. To create that by hand would take a really long time. But we can come in here and we can try a bunch of different things. So like this is an arch. And if I take a look at like a low kind of bent arch, like a 20% bend, it's got a pretty good, it does a pretty good job here. So watch, I'll say okay to this, all right? And the way that it works is the appearance palette is kind of like a layer palette in Photoshop or Illustrator. And what I can do is I can turn the eyeball on and off and on and off and on and off. And it lets me, see it. If I don't like it, I can just take this and drag it to the trash. It makes it go away. Or if I want to change it, I can literally just click on this thing that looks like a kind of like a link, and I can come back here and look, it's live. I can modify it. If I don't want it to be an arch anymore, I can change that too. Like I can make it like a rise. And this is probably one of my go-tos actually when I'm working with the warping objects is rises. They're very common and they work out kind of well. And to be honest with you, and it just kind of puts a little bit of emotion and a little bit of movement into your text, which I think in many ways can really help. Flag is another popular one because it just puts a little curve into the text, and people like to use it as well. Now, with that said, there are definitely some other kinds of warps that you can use. Okay, actually called warps, effects that you can use. Some are going to work out really well. Some are going to be crazy. Like for example, if you try to get into like extruding and beveling, okay, it's going to slow your computer down. And it's the preview that really slows your computer down, okay? It's not the initial one either. Like this is fine, but once I start to go ahead and move this around in 3D space, watch, it's going to go ahead and give me that kind of like beach ball of doom, right? And it's got to rewrite it. This computer that I have has 16 gigs RAM in it, so this is a pretty good laptop. And it can push Adobe really well, but sometimes if you have just like kind of like the standard laptops, like the 8 gig RAM models and just kind of like the lower processor speeds, this one here will like crash your Illustrator, so you want to be aware of that. So I'm going to cancel that because we don't need it. A couple other ones. Convert to shape. Watch what this does. It makes a rectangle. Bam. That's kind of useless. So try to stay away from things like that. There's some other things in here too, like distort and transform, where we can go ahead and we can twist our object. Okay. Anything like that could work. And again, the cool thing is that this is editable, which means I can change that text again. I could go ahead and if I really wanted to, I could change the font. Okay, although we are working with that font, we're definitely working with Bernard, right? But like I could go ahead and I can modify that font if I felt like it. Again, I don't like that, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete it. But I could modify it. There are some other ones in here, things like these Photoshop effects down here. Stay away from them. Okay, we'll get to Photoshop and then do the effects there. Don't do the Photoshop effect inside Illustrator because you're just not going to control it enough. And then there's other ones that are kind of like Photoshop effects, but they're like drop shadow. This is what you get, okay? And if you remember the color wheel, right? We played with drop shadows and things along those lines. And this is just not as user-friendly. You just don't have as many options here. So even like something as simple as a drop shadow, just do that in Photoshop. That's my opinion, and that's what I recommend to you. I do know people who do that stuff in Illustrator, but it's like being a right-handed person and forcing yourself to write left-handed. Why would you do it? It can be done, totally can be done, but it doesn't serve you as well as if you just wrote right, or if you just would write with your right hand. So you want to think about that. So these are a bunch of different things here that you can use. So that's cool. That's a way to go. All right. I'm going to actually go one more kind of step in this direction, I think. So let's bring this back to Arby's. Okay. And I just realized that when I did that, I now I have that big apostrophe again. So that's cool. I'm going to grab this from here one more time. Here, I'm going to just go down with this. Oops. I wanted to show you one other way where we can kind of like warp text. And if this is bothering you, I'm going to go to view and I'm going to just say hide artboards, and that just makes my artboard not like disappear and like it's gone. It's invisible. That's all. So check this out. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 letters in Arby's, and then there's the apostrophe. So we're going to go to edit, or excuse me, object, and we're going to go down to envelope distort, and we're going to say make with mesh. And what we're going to do here, guys, is we are going to count the rows and columns. So there's only one row of text here. So we're going to go ahead and say 1, right? But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 6, but kind of like 5 columns. And I'll say okay. And it sort of drops this into this, like this, which is pretty cool, right? Now, check this out. This is fun. What I'm going to be able to do here is I'm going to literally be able to click and drag and modify the text. And I could do it as a whole, or I could select my direct selection tool and I can grab one of these corners and I can move this around and really kind of start to pull and modify this text up a little bit. So if you wanted to give it a more illustrated look and feel, this is something that you could do, okay? And it's okay and it's legal. You just need to make sure that when you do that, that you are aware that, pulling and pushing letter forms could make them a little hard to read. So you want to make sure that you do it in a way that, one would easily be able to know what's going on. So that's another thing in which you could do. At any point, if you don't like what you see with this kind of distort, you can go to object and envelope distort, and you can just say release. And that will go ahead and essentially just, if this thing kind of looks like a map that we just folded up, it'll just take this away from there, and you can get rid of that envelope. And then if you want to put it back on again, object, envelope distort, make with mesh, say okay, and you can start over. So if you screw up with it, you can just release it and then delete that part, and then you can start back over, and it's no big deal. And again, that's one of those things that are always going to be live, and that's one of the cool things about Illustrator. It's always live, so you want to be aware of those sorts of things. They're really, really, really going to help you as time goes on. So start here, make a bunch of different iterations of this stuff. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Just make a duplication. It's cool. And when all is said and done, you will have multiple options in the directions that you can go in, and you would have multiple options to bring to a potential client or employer as well. So enjoy and get cracking out there, making some cool looking text for your logos. Thank you.